Hello, dear children. Welcome back. I am Dr. Jisha Jo. In this video, we shall study about how we are able to see objects, and we will also discuss some important terms like accommodation, light adaptation, dark adaptation, color vision, stereoscopic vision, and after image. First, let us see how we are able to see an object. There are four major steps in seeing an object. The first step is the entry of light rays. Entry of light rays. The light rays that is coming from the object has to pass through the various transparent structures of the eye. Do you remember which are the transparent structures that are present in front of the eye? That is, we have the conjunctiva. Behind the conjunctiva is the transparent cornea. Then we have the small chamber there which is filled with the aqueous humor. Then behind the aqueous chamber there is the lens. Then behind the lens, that is the large chamber, which is the vitreous chamber, which is filled with the vitreous humor. So the light rays coming from the object has to pass through all these transparent structures before it is able to fall on the retina. Okay, so that is the first step, entry of light rays. Now moving on to the second step. Second step is focusing of image. Focusing of image. The light rays, we know, after passing through all these transparent structures of the eye, falls on the retina, and the image of the object is formed or produced on the retina. This image formed on the retina will be inverted and real image. Image will be inverted and real. Okay, so that is the second step, that is the light rays after passing through the various structures finally fall on the retina, and the image of the object is formed on the retina, and this image is inverted and real image. Now the third step is nerve impulses are transmitted to the brain. Nerve impulses are transmitted to the brain. Okay, so that is the third step. That is, in the second step we have seen that the light falls on the light rays coming from the object falls on the retina, and the image is formed on the retina, and the light energy of the image creates chemical changes in the sensitive cells that are present on the retina. And this produces nerve impulses which are transmitted through the optic nerve into the brain. Okay, so the light energy which of the light from the object has now fallen on the retina in the second step, and this causes chemical changes in the sensitive cells of the retina. This in turn produce nerve impulses, or this in turn generate nerve impulses which are transmitted to the brain. So that is the third step. Nerve impulses which are generated in the retina are transmitted to the brain. How? Through the optic nerve. Okay. Now the fourth step is the interpretation of the image by the brain. The brain interprets the image. That is the fourth step. Now we have seen that the nerve impulses have been generated, and it is transmitted through the optic nerve to the visual area of the brain, and the fourth step is now the brain interprets the image. The image which was in the inverted and real, the image that was formed on the retina is inverted and real image. Now the brain interprets the object as upright. Even though the image formed is inverted and real, the brain interprets the image as, or object as, upright. Okay, so these are the 4 steps on how we are able to see an object. First step is the entry of light rays. The light rays have to pass through the various transparent structures of the eye. Number 2, focusing of the image. The light rays coming from the object falls on the retina and forms an image which is inverted and real. Third step, nerve impulses generated on the retina due to this light energy is transmitted to the brain. Okay, so the light energy which falls on the retina creates chemical changes in the sensitive cells present on the retina, and this generates nerve impulses which are transmitted through the optic nerve into the visual area of the brain. And the fourth step is once it reaches the brain, once the impulse reaches the brain is able to interpret the image. Even though the image formed is real and inverted, the brain interprets it as an upright object. Okay, and that is how we are able to see an object. Now moving on to the first term, accommodation. Accommodation in simple terms means to view an object in sharp focus. When we look at an object, to see the object clearly, the image of the object should be in sharp focus. This process of focusing of the eye to see objects at different distances is called accommodation. Okay, to see an object clearly, the image of the object should be in sharp focus. And this process of focusing of the eye to see the objects at different distances is called accommodation. That means when we look at an object that is far away, that is at a distance, the power of accommodation will be different from when we look at an object that is nearer to us. Okay, and this accommodation of the eye is brought about by change in curvature of the lens. Which are the structures or which are the muscles that are involved in changing the shape of the lens? Do you remember? We have studied in the last class. Do you remember? They are the ciliary muscles which are located in our ciliary body. The muscles that are located in our ciliary body, what is the ciliary body? Do you remember? The expanded portion of the choroid layer in front, to which the suspensory ligaments are attached, which hold the lens. Do you remember all that? So, this accommodation of the eye is brought about by the change in shape of our lens. How was this change in shape of our lens brought about? This is brought about by the muscles of our ciliary body. They are also called as the ciliary muscles. Okay. Now, for objects at a distance, that is to view an object at a distance, for distant vision, the lens should be more thin. The lens should be thin or flattened to view an object at a distance. But to view an object that is near to eye, for near vision, the lens should be more thick, or the lens should be more convex. Okay, did you understand? That is, to see an object at a distance, or for distant vision, the shape of the lens should be less convex, or it should be thin, or the lens should be flattened. Okay, that is the shape of the lens. The lens should be thin. Whereas this is for distant object. For distant vision, the shape of the lens should be thin. Whereas to view an object that is nearby, for near vision, the lens should be near vision, the lens should be more convex, or the lens should be thick. How is this brought about? That is what we are going to see now. So we have seen for distant vision, the shape of the lens should be less convex, or we can say it is flattened or thin. Okay, whereas for near vision, the lens is more convex or thicker. Now let us see how this change in shape of the lens is brought about. This is brought about by, I told you, the ciliary muscles and the suspensory ligaments. Okay. Now, in the first case, that is to see objects at a distance. For distant vision, we know the lens have to become more thin or less convex. When does this happen? This happens when the ciliary muscles relax. Ciliary muscles relax. And what happens when the ciliary muscles relax? The suspensory ligaments tighten. Suspensory ligaments tighten up. So when the ciliary muscles relax, the suspensory ligaments that are present on both the upper and lower side of the lens, they tighten up. So what happens? They pull the lens from the upper and lower part, and as a result the lens will become more thin. Okay, so lens becomes thin or less convex. This is the case for distant vision. So in this case, when we are looking at an object that is far away, what happens? The light rays from the object passes through the less convex lens and it is focused on the retina. Okay. Now moving on to the second type where we are viewing or where we are seeing an object that is close to us, that is near to our eye, that is for near vision. What happens or what are the changes that are taking place in the ciliary muscles and the suspensory ligaments? So here in the second case, the ciliary muscles contract. Ciliary muscles contract. Okay, so it is just the opposite of what is happening in the first case. Here the ciliary muscles contract. And what happens to the suspensory ligaments? The suspensory ligaments tighten. Suspensory ligaments relax. And so what happens? The lens become thick or it becomes more convex. Okay, so for near vision, what happens? For near vision, the lens, the shape of the lens should be more convex or it should be thicker. So how does it occur? How is it brought about? This is brought about by the contraction of the ciliary muscles, and as a result the suspensory ligaments relax. So when there is relaxation of the suspensory ligaments from both ends, what happens? Naturally the lens becomes more convex. Here in this case the suspensory ligaments are tightening up, pulling from both ends, tightening up, and so the lens is stretched from both ends. That is why it is becoming thin or less convex. Whereas in the second case the suspensory ligaments relax. How? Due to the contraction of the ciliary muscles, and as a result the lens becomes more thick or more convex, or we can say the lens becomes rounded. So I hope that is clear to you. Okay, now we shall move on to see what is light adaptation and dark adaptations. First let us have a look at light adaptation. What is light adaptation? When we move from a dark room to a brightly lighted area, that is, for example, after a cinema, when we come out of the cinema hall, from the cinema theater to the outside, we feel a dazzling effect in our eyes, isn't it? So what is actually happening here? So light adaptation, when does it occur? When we move from a dark room to a brightly lighted area. What is actually happening there in our eyes? We know when we were in the dark, which are the sensitive cells that are active, sensory cells that are active in dark? It is the rods. The pigment rhodopsin was present there. Okay, and it was these rod cells that helped us to see in the dark. Now, when we are moving out from a dark room to a brightly lighted area, what happens? Now, the function of the rod cells is it does not function anymore. Okay, so now the what should happen is the rhodopsin that was active there in the dark, this rhodopsin pigment gets bleached. Rhodopsin is bleached. So that is the first thing that is happening there. And second thing, when we were in the dark, our pupil was highly dilated. Pupil was highly dilated to let in more light into our eyes. Because we were in the dark room, more light has to enter into our eyes for better vision. So our pupils were dilated. Now, when we move from a dark room to a brightly lighted area, we don't want that much light to enter into our eyes. So, what happens? The pupil constricts. Pupil constricts. So these are the two things that are happening in light adaptation. When does it take place? When we move from a dark room to a brightly lighted area. What happens? The first thing that is happening is rhodopsin gets bleached. And second thing is pupil constricts to restrict the entry of too much light, or to prevent the entry of too much light into our eyes. So that is light adaptation. Now, what is dark adaptation? How does it take place? When does it take place? When we move out from a brightly lighted area to a dark room. Just the reverse. When we are moving from outside into the cinema theater, that is from a lighted area to a dark room, for a few seconds we won't be able to see anything. It will be completely dark. When we were in the light, which was the pigment that was active there? It is the iodopsin that was active there. The corn cells were active there, isn't it? Now, when we move into the dark, the corn cells will not function in the dark. Okay, which are the cells that are active or sensitive in dim light? We know they are the rod cells. So what should happen here? The first thing is the regeneration of rhodopsin should take place. Rhodopsin. And the second thing that is happening, what is happening in our eyes is, when we were in the light, our pupils were constricted so as to prevent more light from entering into our eyes. Now, when we have moved on to the dark room, the pupil has to dilate. Okay, the pupil dilates. Pupil dilates. So this is called as dark adaptation. So I hope you have understood the difference between light adaptation and dark adaptation. Light adaptation means when does it occur? When we move from a dark room to a brightly lighted area. What happens? The rhodopsin gets bleached and pupil constricts. What is dark adaptation? When does it occur? When we move from a brightly lighted area to a dark room. What happens here? The rhodopsin should be regenerated to help us, to enable us to see in dark. And second point, the pupil dilates so as to allow entry of more light into our eyes, which will help us to see in the dark room. So this difference between light adaptation and dark adaptation can be asked for the exam. So I hope it is clear to you. Now, moving on to the third term, next term, color vision. We know in the last video we have seen the color vision is possible because of the corn cells that are present in our eyes. The corn cells are concentrated mostly in the yellow spot, and it is these corn cells that help us to differentiate the colors. But in the dim light or in a dark room, we are not able to distinguish the colors. A simple example, if we move out to our garden on a moonlit night, we won't be able to differentiate the colors of the different flowers in our garden, because in a moonlit night, it is a dim light. Moonlight means it is a dim light. So in dim light, which is the sensitive cells or sensory cells that are active there, the rods are active, and the pigment produced is rhodopsin. So rods are not sensitive to color, or rods do not respond to color, and that is the reason why we are not able to differentiate the colors of the flowers in our garden on a moonlit night. So color vision is possible due to the corn cells that are present in our eyes. In a moonlit night, it is the rods that are active there. The rods do not respond to color, and that is the reason why we are unable to differentiate the colors of the different flowers in our garden. Now moving on to the next term, stereoscopic vision. What is stereoscopic vision? We know we have two eyes, and our two eyes are located on the front side of our head. When we look at an object, the image of the object, or both of our eyes view that object. If when we are looking at an object, both our eyes are viewing at the object, and the image of the object is produced in each of our eye. Okay, did you understand? When we are looking at an object, both our eyes are viewing that object, and the image of the object is produced in both our eyes. Two separate images will be produced, one in each eye of the same object. And nerve impulses will be generated in each of our eye, and these nerve impulses will reach the brain. And in the brain, what happens? These two images overlap. The images coming from both the eyes overlap in the visual area of our brain. This gives a three-dimensional effect to the object. This is what is called as stereoscopic vision. So I hope you have understood. That is, when we look at an object, both our eyes are viewing that object, and in each of our eye, the image of the object will be formed. Very slightly different image will be formed, because we are viewing at the object from two slightly different angles. So slight different image of the object will be produced in our eyes, in each of our eyes, and the nerve impulse that is generated in each eye will be transmitted to the brain, and the two images overlap in the brain, giving a three-dimensional effect to the image. So this is called as stereoscopic vision. And it is due to this type of vision, that is the stereoscopic vision, we are able to perceive the distance where the object is in relation to ourselves. We are able to perceive the distance or the depth of an object in relation to us because of this type of vision, which we call as the stereoscopic vision. So stereoscopic vision helps us to perceive the depth or the relative distance of the object from us. Now moving on to after image. After image is just a visual illusion or an optical illusion in which the image of an object persists in our eyes even after the object is removed from our vision. What is it? The image of an object persists in our eyes even after the object is removed from our vision. A simple example, we are looking at a brightly colored object, And for a few seconds, if we are looking at that object, and suddenly if we close our eyes, the image of that object will persist in our eyes. This is called as after image, or it is otherwise called as persistence image. Okay, so here when we close our eyes, the object is removed from our vision, isn't it? Even then, the image of that particular object persists in our eyes. This is called after image, or another term is persistence image. So what is after image? It is a visual illusion or an optical illusion in which the image of an object continued to persist in our eyes even after the removal of the object, even after we remove the object from our vision. Now these after images form the basis behind motion pictures. In a movie, pictures are projected on the screen at 25 pictures per second. And we cannot see the individual frames. 24 frames are projected per second, but we cannot see the individual frames. This is because of the after image. So after image is the basis behind movies or motion pictures. So what is after image? It is the persistence of an image in our eye even after the removal of the object from our vision. Okay, dear children, I hope what we have studied in this session is clear to you. If you have any doubts or suggestions, please ask your doubts and give your suggestions in the comment section. Thank you.